here. This is a joint work with Heinz Scheffler, who stays home and writes the Springer book, which is overdue. The work was supported by big NSF grants. We have been fortunate to be funded by NSF on our work. We sort of joined the mathematical biology later in our careers. Our original field is actually optimal control. And this is a big 800 pages book, which the methods which I will be using in this talk comes from this book, but I will try to make it minimally optimal controlized talk. So I'll only show you very few formulas and methods. Now the follow-up is the book we are working on now, which is already 2 years overdue. That's why Hans did not come here. Now we organize a number of workshops in Tel Aviv, in Cape Town, just like this one here. Some of them resulted in the edited book, and this one I put on because 3 out of 4 editors are here, with Amner and Eugene. And it's interesting because the title doesn't have cancer in it, but it turns out that more than half of the articles in the book were about cancer, so this also says something about general trends in biomedicine. Okay, so some collaborators from our research. With Yang Sim, we have done some work on glioblastoma, which I will not talk about today. Alberto Donofrio is from modeling, Helmut is more numerical analysis, and we have 2 new collaborators on metronomic chemotherapy, Nicholas and Andy, and I'm going to talk about sort of joint work and plans with them towards the end. Okay, so this is the introduction. Of course, no work in the US can be done without help of graduate students who master MATLAB much better than we do. So let me start with optimal control, which is not just a field of how to drive a motorcycle without crossing the grass, or how to fly the autopilot on the plane, but also found applications in biomedicine. And generally, this is a diagram which can describe any optimal control problem, but if we adopt it to biomedicine or cancer modeling more precisely, the dynamics can represent the interaction between all kinds of cells, all between cancer cells, normal cells, various types of cancer cells, but also elements of microenvironment like the vasculature or immune system. Now, control represents the anti-cancer drug, whatever we are using, and there will be various examples in this talk. This generates a response, which then we feed to the objective, which is something we bring to the table. In some sense, biology does not indicate, but there should be an objective which somehow reflects the biology properly. So if we want to minimize the tumor, maximize the immune system, minimize the vasculature, of course minimize the side effects, and so on and so on. There are various ways of doing it. And then the dotted line here is really where all the math process comes, resulting with control, which can be more or less realistic to apply to the real problems, of course. So that's another issue, how to adapt it. Now here in the gray box, I'm hiding a little bit what in engineering we call disturbances. In biomodeling, we would more call it unmodeled aspects of the dynamics. And we have plenty of that in the gray box because we only use the minimally parameterized. I'm not saying small because it's negative, but minimally parameterized some positive model. And that's simply the limitation of the method in optimal control. Okay, but still, these models still give us a lot of interesting results, so they defend themselves in some sense. Okay, so going back to this dynamics box, in this box we are going to look at elements of tumor microenvironment, models which differentiate between the type of cancer cells, so take into account heterogeneity, but also models which include the vasculature and include the various types of immune chemotherapeutic agents, then clearly we would just need this compartment. But even this compartment should not be homogeneous. The heterogeneity has to be taken into account. So cytotoxic, cytostatic drugs have to also take into account the variety of tumor cells. But then we also have a true indirect approach which addresses elements of the microenvironment, the immunotherapies, which address the immune system, and anti-angiogenic therapy, which targets the vasculature. And here is sort of a general question, how to optimize the anti-tumor, anti-angiogenic, and pro-immune effects of therapy by modulating dose and administration schedule. This would sound a little bit like the optimal control goal, but actually this very sentence is taken from the slide of these two colleagues of ours. This is a biologist from Cancer Institute in Sydney, and he, Nicolas, is the MD PhD from a children's hospital in France, and they stated this as sort of a challenge, a goal, at the workshop on tumor metronomics, to which Heinz and I attended 2 years ago, time flies, and when we were going there, we really didn't know what tumor metronomics is, and why we were invited to begin with. But it turns out there's actually some mathematical structures for singular controls which constantly appear in the models which we were analyzing, were precisely sort of in a spotlight at the moment of some type of medical research when they are trying to look not at the new drugs, which of course cost millions and hundreds of millions, but in new ways of applying or utilizing the old traditional drugs. And old traditional means something as simple and cheap as Taxol or PPA. And there's sort of a motto there, which could be also a motto of my talk here, is that more is not necessarily better. There are even some medical articles here which says more is less. So this is just an SMD article which I wrote with Eddie after a workshop in Sydney, which our team was also co-organizer when we had a panel discussion on metronomics. So I'll try to convince you here that more is actually less in many cases in this talk. Okay, so the outline here is the goal is to show models which involve tumor microenvironment and show how certain elements affect the scheduling of the drug. So I'll talk about model with heterogeneity under chemotherapy, then model for anti-angiogenic treatment, then I will bring the tumor immune interactions into picture, and then somehow combine all of this, leading to, under the umbrella of metronomic chemotherapy, leading to a model for metronomic chemotherapy which we are working on now, really right now. And I will talk about what we did, what we want to do, and show why we are doing it in the sense of medical perspective here. Okay, so we start with heterogeneity of tumor populations. When we say heterogeneity, the question is how many really levels of heterogeneity should we take into account? And let me start, instead of small to big, from very big to small. Very big is if we assume that we have basically a continuum levels of drug resistance. This is a paper by Doron Levy and collaborator with just here. And I happened to be a reviewer of this paper. When I started reading, I thought, why do we need so many levels? They are all parameterized by this X, which is from 0, 1. We have various reproduction, apoptosis, drug sensitivity levels, all depending on that X. It still takes cell density into account, mutations, and all of this very, very complicated results actually in quite surprising thing. At the end, it turns out that all these populations stabilize and cluster around maybe 2 or 3 dominant traits. So it makes sense, and this actually should be like a Dirac spike, but because of the mutations, they look a little bit around. But so it makes parameterized by S. Yeah. So anyway, so this is the moreover, notice that it's not just 0, 1 thing. It's not all resistance sensitive, but it's parameterized around some middle value of 3 or 7. So this, in some sense, gave us an incentive. Well, we were working on this model before, but it sort of rubber stamps something which we looked already earlier, namely a model by Humfeld, Hoffman, Herky, which takes into account just 2 levels of drug sensitive and resistant. So it's a small to compartmental model. You have transition between the two. So clearly you have sensitive becomes resistant under drug, the resistance gets resensitized, you have growth of each. But what is very important, which connects with the previous slide, is that when we apply the drug, go through pharmacokinetics, that's a simple equation. When we apply the drug, we assume that each of the compartments is sensitive or resistant with certain percentage. So it's not completely 100%, but we can regulate this P1, P2, which exactly connects with the two. Okay, so we look at this model and we analyze it as an optimal control problem. So as I said, the objective is sort of up to us. So we look at the model which will minimize the both population weighted average at the end, at the terminal time. Then we throw the term which sort of minimize them also at the intermediate times. And this is a safety valve that you don't spike up in the intermediate time. This really should be added. And then this, since we are not modeling healthy cells, we need to have a term which accounts for side effects here. And that's the dynamics which we just looked before. And the control here represents just the drug dosage. So U equals 0 with no drug, U max is the maximum dose. And the problem is linear in control, as you see. So all the problems which we look at which are linear in control commands basically, the analysis commands 2 types of candidates for optimal protocols. The first class, which mathematically we call bang-bang, is just the periods of full dose with the rest period. And on this workshop in Boston, we learned that in medicine they call it MPD. We didn't know much of medicine at that time, but MPD means maximum tolerable dose. And the switching function here, if it's positive or negative, that's what it happens. So in some sense, for a homogeneous cancer population under chemotherapy, that is the right strategy. Kill as much as you can, basically. Whereas the singular controls correspond to, well, anything else. So this includes the class which in medicine is called now Metronomic chemotherapy. You give partial doses, you may vary them or not. And now there is a new term in medical literature because the interest of this alternative to MPD is growing tremendously. So there you see now a lot of papers with using the code BOD, which you can guess will be biologically optimal dose. Medicine likes the shortcuts. Okay, so what I'm going to show in this talk is that this class appears in all the models which we analyze, which involves tumor environment and takes into account heterogeneity, like the one which is just coming. Now, analysis of singular controls is a little bit tricky. There are books written on singular control. So I'll only show you that it's all about analyzing the switching function. So I only have one dirty mathematical slide, which just tells you that you have to differentiate this switching function and hope that control appears pretty soon. It usually appears in the even order derivative. And if it does, then we calculate it out and then give this singular control a label that it's order k, so let's divide by 2. And this is the condition which we play with all the time. This condition is condition which decides whether singular control is part of the game or not. If this condition is satisfied, well, then we minimize the tumor, we are good. If this condition is violated, this means our singular control maximizes the tumor, which is not exactly what we want, so we throw it out. So in this talk I will be, and if you have never seen this condition, just think about high order condition for minimum from calculus. That's basically what it is in a more advanced form. Okay, so we apply this condition exactly to the model which I was showing you before, and it gave us two types of region. The region which we before called bang, now we gave it more medical term of MTD. That's a region when you give full dose with rest periods. So that's the region here. It's jumping. Okay, so for this region, singular controls do not exist, but we give bang. And how to characterize this region? Well, it basically means if the sensitive compartment is large enough, then there is point to hit it with a full bullet, basically. But if it's not, and that's the outside the MPD region, so if the sensitive gets depleted and resistant cells are higher, then actually Legendre-Fletch condition is satisfied, the one I was showing you before, so singular are optimal. In this particular problem, the little issue was that they were of order 2, and singular control of order 1 are easy to combine with the bang pieces, with the pieces of MTD. Singular of order 2, just for mathematical reasons, don't match together, but what happens, it generates chattering. So the control switches infinitely many times on the interval of any measure. So if you want to give a medical protocol, you clearly don't want that. So we didn't pursue further this analysis as a theoretical one, but instead we look for some reasonably good suboptimal protocols. And here are some examples of it. Now, how you should start? Well, you know when you are starting, you have more sensitive than resistant. This is a Norton-Simon hypothesis I will talk about in a moment. So clearly you are in this MTD zone, so you should start with full dose. And that's what we are doing here. After some depletion of the sensitive happens, you should move to the partial doses, to the singular, or if you prefer metronomic. So that's how, so we try to just look how long we have to go with this Umax. And here you see that after the switch, we are actually not that efficient because sensitive are depleted, but resistant are spiking up again. So we increase that period, and then it turns out that that was already a winner, because after even 148 days, both populations were pretty much depleted. And again, we usually call this bang singular, but now we adopted the medical terminology. In medical literature, they call it chemo switch, because you first sort of hit the tumor with or cancer with a full dose, and then you go down. Now I mean, that was just a two-compartment, sensitive and resistant. Similar thing we observe when we increase the model slightly by introducing sensitive, resistant, and partially sensitive. So three-dimensional model, which here is the illustration. It was we took sort of assumption that all the transfers are positive, so it's ergodic system. The cells visits all the compartments, and the same objective as I showed you before. So we just increase the size of the dynamics. And it turns out that we got a very similar response, the chemo switch. Here the singular was of order 1, so we didn't have to worry about chattering. So again, you start with a full dose, then you switch to the singular metronomic low dose treatment. And here it shows how all the three populations got depleted. So this is all, you can say, just toy models in silico, okay? But to sort of defend them, I'll show you some, not my slides, but these are slides by which I got from Nicholas, done with his collaborator, when they did an in vitro experiment on two populations of sensitive and resistant cells. And what you see here is interactions in the absence of treatment. In the absence of treatment, following the Norton-Simon hypothesis, we know that after a short spike, this is just an enlargement on the beginning. After a short spike when the resistance are higher, the green, basically the resistance stay flat and the sensitive are growing. That is sort of understood according to this hypothesis. Now, oh, by the way, this here is in days. Je in days, that was a French song. Okay. Now we hit it with a full bullet, MTD treatment. And what happens, of course, we are killing the sensitive, the bone. Okay. But look what happened here. The moment the sensitive starts going down, the resistance are raising their head and growing. Okay, that's the scenario. So the final outcome, if you take weighted average of both, is not that wonderful. Okay. Then what they did here is they applied metronomic, means lower dose. These two things in the middle are the metronomic responses. The top is if you do nothing, and the bottom is if you apply MTD. So clearly, if you apply MTD, you do much better. But how much better and at what expense? I put this arrow here to mark this curve here, okay? And look, the full metronomics is 5 units. This guy is 0.5, 10 times less. And the response is, you could say, well, it's not great, but it's not terrible neither. But before you say it's not great, you can look at the next slide, because that will be what happened to resistant ones. On the MTD, the resistance are all the way up. Okay? Where the response to metronomics under resistant under metronomics are basically lying flat, almost as close to the non-treatment. Okay. So this really explains why also in the models we constantly get the singular controls as a better option than the MTD, because we precisely take a weighted average of both. So in some sense what happens here is that once the sensitive makes room, are killed, room becomes available for resistance, they start growing. So the whole treatment is giving much worse effect than metronomic. Okay, so this was on the heterogeneity. Now, what is really metronomics and what are these effects? Okay, so let me now bring a little bit of definitions, although there's really no definition. Okay. But it basically says treatment at low dose. How much lower? Well, before when I was in Boston, they said between 10 and 80% of MTD. Now Nicholas says no, 80 no good. It has to be between 10 and 50. So they are seeing less and less should be of the total should be the metronomics. Now, whether it's constant or vary in time, whether you allow or not short rest period, it's all up to negotiations at the moment. It's not clear. But what are the advantages? Well, the one on Nicholas' slides you have seen. It is lower toxicity, so you do not kill that many, but you also have a lower drug resistance. So overall, as a total of cancer cells, you are still doing better. Moreover, which was not shown on Nicholas' slides, they observed this resensitization effect, that under the metronomic chemotherapy, a number of resistant cells, which were already in the compartment which you couldn't reach, goes back to the sensitive one. And this is again something when the MTD was so advertised as just keep as strong as you can, because otherwise the drug resistance will develop. This is already a forgotten concept. This is not true. Actually, to the contrary. You get a better deal resistance versus sensitive going for metronomic. But there are two more effects, which now I'm going to address in the second part of my talk, as an extra bonus for giving the low dose, you get an anti-angiogenic effect. And this again, applying a simple taxol CPA at the low dose. So you cannot do cheaper than that. And you get a boost to immune system. So that's where we know that full dose NCD affects the immune system. Yes?
Do you know what schedule they use for Metronomic in that experiment?
Yeah, they will be medical slides at the end. I'll show you. Okay? Okay. So now what I'm going to do is discuss how to model it. So if we would want to model it, we'll have to take at least 3 compartments into account. Maybe more if you want to take heterogeneity, but at least 3. And our goal is to construct a minimally parameterized metamodel, and basically it would have to be a model with single input, because one control is doing 3 jobs basically here from the understanding of the biology here. So that's sort of a little cartoon which shows this. So we want to address all 3. What I'm going to do is basically show you how we go into that model. So we first took a model for anti-angiogenic treatment. So we have these 2 compartments, then the one for the tumor-immuno interaction, and we sort of married them together. So let me start with the anti-angiogenic. Now, Tracy will give us a treat tomorrow with the models for angiogenesis, so I will tell very little here. Do I have to define angiogenesis or everybody knows? Okay, the anti-angiogenic treatment is a treatment which prevents the recruitment of the new blood vessels to the tumor. The way it's being accomplished is by inhibiting the VEGF, which is an enzyme which allows the growth of the endothelial cells, the lining of the newly developed blood vessels. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this is a therapy which in some sense was developed as a response to problems with drug resistance. It was supposed to turn the curse of drug resistance into our advantage. We just discussed how the drug resistance developed, because since we are targeting healthy cells of the vasculature, the therapy is got sort of a nickname as resistance to resistance. On the other hand, the drugs are expensive, they are biological agents, and I think rather recently it was also discovered that they have very strong side effects. So there is a point to discuss how to apply these drugs in the optimal way. And we have done a lot of work on one model. This is a model by Hampel. This was at that time group at Harvard School of Medicine. Hoffman is the person who really discovered anti-angiogenesis. So it is a minimally parameterized model. You have a P, which is the volume of the tumor. So it's a Gompertzian growth with varying carrying capacity. Q is the carrying capacity of the vasculature. And what you see here is the U, which represents the control, which is basically the dosage of the anti-angiogenic drug, affects tumor, of course, only indirectly because it affects the carrying capacity. Okay, and we look at this model as an optimal control problem. We have done a lot of work on it because it was also very successful mathematically. So we didn't limit the therapy time for pre-therapy time, minimize size of a tumor at the end. This represents the dosage of the anti-angiogenic inhibitors, and we limit the total amount of the drug given. So it's sort of a no-nonsense formulation how you can use the given amount of drug in the optimal way. And this graph here is what in optimal control we consider ultimate solution to the problem. We call it synthesis, and if you want to explain it to the young people, it's like GPS. You give the initial point, and I will tell you how to give the drug. So it's like all possible simulations in one. And here I only want to bring to your attention the fact that this curve here is like a fast highway of this GPS, that almost every reasonable treatment has to go on it. Like here we have an example. This is a full dose, then this is a response to partial doses and that's a rest period. But what is mainly important is that if you look at the axis with T, which is the size of a tumor, it's not along the full dose treatment, MTD, but along this partial dose, this singular one, when you see the most shrinkage of the tumor. So it's like there is this magic balance between T and Q that if you catch it and you adjust the dose, then you are doing the best, not just more is better in a blind way. And moreover, in the full synthesis, this portion, time-wise, it's the longest period. So this is just how long you give the MTD, the full dose. This is how you have a rest period at the end, and that's all a singular path. So we see that this is already the third model where this metronomic singular is playing really very essential role. And now we are talking about tumor and anti-angiogenic treatment. Now, if we go to tumor-immune interactions, similar things appears. This is again a very simple, minimally parameterized model. It's sort of ancient. It's called Stepanova model that comes from 1980. But in spite of being ancient, it's being revisited very often recently by researchers. So we have again two compartments. We have a tumor and we have the Y, which is called immunocompetent cell density. We have Gompertzian growth again for the tumor, of course, can be two different. And the two red terms represent the interaction between tumor and the immune system. The quadratic term is sort of simple but nice because it accounts for that the small tumor will actually stimulate the immune system, where passing certain threshold the immune system will be suppressed by the tumor. So we look at this model again. It's very rudimentary to put all the immune cells in one compartment. You can tell it's very, very rudimentary, but it has an interesting already mathematics behind. This is a phase portrait for it, and we have two asymptotically stable equilibria. The good one, when the tumor is small but immune system is strong, and the bad one, the node where the immune system is almost depleted and the tumor is very high. And the regions of attraction are separated by this unstable saddle, or by the, actually to be precise, by the stable manifold of it. So clearly, if we are above this stable manifold, we will converge to the good equilibrium. We don't need to do a thing. But if we are below, we have to cross that manifold. And that's basically a goal of the treatment. But we cannot cross it by itself unless we apply drugs. So here we look at this model applying two types of treatments in chemotherapy, just a local hypothesis, and the immune boost. And the objective again is our call to make it so we made it that we maximize the tumor volume, minimize the tumor volume, maximize the immune system, and at the side effects of both, and limit the time somehow. If we don't limit the time, it goes into saddle and stay there forever. Peter, yeah?
But the time don't have the X under the integral.
No, we don't. It was getting a little bit messy, but it doesn't change much the analysis. This is just, it's already, since there are already two treatments, but yes, it could be added, it doesn't change the analysis. But yes, you are very observant. So anyway, on top of it, one comment I still want to make, that this part is not just minimizing tumor, maximizing immune, but this A and B are chosen precisely to allow the movement from the bad into the good region. So the weights here are chosen in a specific way. Okay, and here is the outcome. Again, the model is awfully simple, but the optimal control here in some sense defends the model, because it actually agrees, it's again this chemo switch, and it agrees with a lot of work which has been done in vitro and even in vivo analysis of the treatment, which The doctors don't call it optimal, but the one that works, so to speak. So here, red is how to apply chemotherapy. So again, we have this little piece of MTD, like a boost. Then we switch to the singular control, so partial dose is metronomic. And then we have a rest period, and we give still a boost at the end. Immuno is just one boost. But what is important here is, again, this singular part, this partial dose metronomic part, is the most important part of the whole synthesis, because here you see the response to it between these two red dots is the response to the singular part. So if you see, that's where we move from the bad into the good region. That singular partial dose thing is what does the job to move us from bad region into the good one. So again, it is part of the synthesis, and it's an important part of the synthesis. Okay, so now we are... Yes?
Can you go back?
Sure.
And are you saying that you couldn't do it with bang bang?
It will not be optimal. It will simply not be optimal. I'm not saying I couldn't do it, but my objective would be higher.
But then, how bad is it?
How bad is it just to bang bang? Well, I don't have a comparison, but it is worse.
Yeah.
It is worse. And what also, I mean, why I like this slide is because that slide made us the collaboration with Nicholas and Eddie, because once they saw this slide, they said that's exactly what we do in our experiments. We tested it various ways, in vitro, in vivo even, and then we decided that yes, we don't know why, but we should give a MTD for just a short time, then bring slowly down the dose, then wait, and then give that full boost at the end. And they said we had no idea why this full boost at the end, but it worked, and we did not know why we should go down, but it worked. So when they saw this slide, they were like, wow. So it is MTD will do worse. Again, how much worse it's hard to describe, but clearly they also see it that worse. Okay, so now combining, and again, we did something very simple. We married the two models, which I just showed you before, to get the three compartments. So this is our really work in progress. We have tumor, we have vasculature, and we have immune system. And if you would look closer, you recognize pieces of Stepanova and Hampel and Stepanova model. And here is this metronomic treatment, which basically has some cytotoxic effect and has some anti-angiogenic effect, much larger, and it gives immune boost. So with one bullet, we sort of kill, with one stone, we kill three birds. That's how we say in English. Okay, and yes? Yes, because this is supposed to mimic what Metronomic does. You have one control which has some cytotoxic effect, it has anti-angiogenic effect, and it has pro-immune effect. We are trying to model Metronomic. That's what Metronomic...
I didn't understand it that way. I thought you still have different agents that do...
No, I only brought an example for anti-angiogenic treatment to show that in all these things, constantly singular, some mimicking Metronomic shows up.
Right, I understand that, but I thought that there were still different things that you do for, well...
No, it's one drug. It's one drug, or can be a cocktail of drugs. Later on, of course, in medical trials we do cocktail, but it's one thing. It's single input and does three jobs. It's exactly how this slide here is showing. You hit it with one bullet, and a cheap one, just a CPA, for example, low dose, okay, costs nothing, and you get this thing. So now, what is here sort of an issue is how effectiveness should be adjusted. And this I will show you in a moment. We were looking, and we also will vary the influx to of immune system from the immune source. So let me just show you the parameters. We were not too good with parameter estimation. So we basically adjusted the parameters from the two models so things match. As I said, we'll vary the gamma, which is the influx, and the effectiveness we really got only a week ago from Nicholas. After a long exchange of emails, he finally understood what we want mathematically, and he answered that effectiveness means what weight we should put, how much is the cytotoxic effect, how much is the anti-angiogenic, how much is pro-immune. He said it depends on the, he called it tumor drug duet, his friend, so he wanted to defend. But basically what it means, what drug goes for what tumor. And I said, okay, but can you at least give us something? So he suggested this weight, which I was just telling Tracy, it's quite a strong anti-angiogenic effect.
In fact, it's most.
It's mostly. He said for this drug it is. You know, to his defense, he works specifically on drugs which have anti-angiogenic effects, which are metronomic chemotherapy drugs. So that's why maybe he's not interested that much or doesn't know much about the ones with the immuno. But he said this effect can be almost, there are some of the research effects can be almost negligible. But still, in most of the cases, it's there, but it's small.
And it's still, it's a cytotoxic chemotherapy. It's not
Yes,
a targeted,
it's a cytotoxic.
it's not a targeted thing. Like
No, it's a cytotoxic chemotherapy. But because of the low dose, the cytotoxic effect is lost. But as you've seen on this Nicholas slide, even with giving 10% of MTD, you still have pretty good cytotoxic response. So, okay, so what we did here, how much time do I have? 5 minutes?
Yes, 5 minutes.
Okay, that's fine. That's how much I need if I am fast. Okay, 7. Okay, so anyway, the analysis here, of course, it's three-dimensional, so you have to have projections on the PQ and PR space. But what is interesting here, that actually this model inherits the multi-stability structure of the Stepanova model, not the Hampel model. So you have this good equilibrium here where the tumor and vasculature are low. The immune system is high here, it actually didn't fit in the graph. And then you have the bad equilibrium here, the asymptotically stable node, where the immune system is very low, but both P and Q means tumor and vasculature are high. And again, you have similar scenario. You have this boundary, which is a stable manifold of the unstable saddle in the middle, which separates the region of attraction. So the story repeats. You have to get from the bad into the good region. Another interesting thing which we observed was actually a saddle node bifurcation. It turns out that if the influx from the immune system is high enough and the bifurcation about and was around that value, that saddle and node merge and disappear. And here you see how they come close and they get together. They were still quite apart before.
So I think this is interesting because this reminds me of the mountain pass lemma.
Okay.
You just have
You
to
will
pass
start
across
with
with a little bit, and you are going to the right way.
Yes, so to speak. So here you see how this equilibria comes together. They merge and they disappear. And what does it really mean? If the bad and the unstable merge together and disappear, you only have good. So this means that if the influx from the immune system sources is large enough, you have immune survival. Basically, the immune system gets control of it. Okay, and now we apply the low-dose chemotherapy to this equilibria. So benign is going down, which is fine, but it's small to begin with. The malignant goes down, that's good. And the unstable one is actually going up as far as tumor volume, which first may sound bad, but it's not bad because this way the region of attraction of a good one gets larger. So overall, this is all good effect. And now what we did, we formulated this as an optimal control problem, and now Peter will say you don't have this intermediate state. But we have already our hands full with PQR, all with the weighted averages. These ABC are taken precisely to around the transfer between bad and good region, and the rest is sort of similar as in this tumor-immune interaction model. And okay, I only want to say that we have to play a lot with Lie brackets. This is the definition, and you have to do single and double and sometimes even fourth order. So this is our toy as far as analysis is concerned. And here I have mercy to spare you the formulas we got out of it, but instead I'll show you a colorful picture. What this really says is that for most of the initial conditions, Legendre-Clebsch condition is satisfied, which means partial doses mean singulars will be optimal. That's exactly what we want because it's supposed to be towards metronomic. This piece here may mean that there will be some spike of higher doses at the beginning, but that's in general how singular control will look as a feedback, so it nicely stabilizes at the low doses. And here it shows how a response to it is that the P and Q are going down, so tumor vasculature goes down, and here in PR, tumor goes down, immune system goes up. So this is still work in progress, but why we are doing it is because we like to be invited to medical conferences, and there is tremendous evidence in medicine that actually the metronomic chemotherapy works. And first you are asking about some of the, this is for example a paper which describes the effect of pure metronomic, but the pure metronomic is combination of these 4 drugs on the pediatric cancers. And the effect, as you see here, is mostly the anti-angiogenic. So they are, I have these slides from precisely Nicolas and Eddie, and they work on anti-angiogenic effects of chemotherapy. So this is purely. Now, this is this chemo switch, which they are so excited about. And again, so you first hit with a big bullet, but for a very short time. Then you go down to the partial doses. And again, this is an evidence of effect on the, this one is sort of general, it's not just anti-angiogenic. Okay, and tumor concept, because I put on the slide metronomics and other alternatives, other alternatives to MTD. Okay, tumor concepts which are very much around, people like buzzwords. So another buzzword here, very common, is adaptive therapy, and it comes from Bob Gattenby, who is the boss of the Moffitt Cancer Center, and he published this article in Nature actually, where he basically tried to explain to politicians why it's good to just treat cancer as a chronic disease by only cutting the branches which are too many, so to speak. So people consider this adaptive therapy as example when you really only eliminate the cells which needs to be eliminated, not try to chase the goal of bringing cancer to zero. So that is one thing, and another is actually the idea which Nicolas and Eddie said, do not delete this from any talk because we want to advertise, and they call it chaotic therapy. Basically what they say, if you assume that you have many levels of drug resistance, then you should try to play a game with cancer to change the dosage all the time in hope that you will hit those levels. So they have already some trials on that. Peter doesn't like it. No, well I don't know, but they are running some trials on this, just varying almost in the random way. So I'm not supporting it or defending it, I'm just reporting. Okay, and generally this is the movement, Metronomic Global Initiative. These are the 2 guys who formed this. Janula was a host of that workshop in Tufts where we discussed it. This is a website if anybody wants to join there's no membership fee. You just join and they will give you the information what is new, what is coming. And what is forthcoming, which I was told to advertise because I was asked to be on the organized committee and I'm supposed to make mathematicians excited about this, is the mathematics and cancer workshop, which they are planning for Marseille for the end of 2015. But the reason I'm also mentioning that it will be a 4-day workshop, but one entire day will be devoted to metronomic chemotherapy. So this thing is really a very growing movement. And from the sort of earlier events, which I'm trying to get Tracy to come, is just once a year they have a meeting. And this year is in June, Metronomic and anti-androgenic therapy meeting. And these are all doctors, but they are absolutely excited about getting some mathematicians aboard because at the moment they observe a lot of these things in clinical trials, in vitro, but they have no idea what is happening really. So any insight is very welcome. Okay, thank you very much.
Maybe just a couple of quick questions.
Yes? Yes, Mark?
So what kind of cancers?
Oh, all kind. I mean, you have seen those. They are okay. In some sense, all kinds. On the other hand, it's not every cancer. Absolutely, every cancer does better on metronomic than NTD. There are two types of leukemia, which I wish I would remember the names. That one of them does beautifully on metronomics, and one of them does horribly and still responds much better to NTD. So it is, but still there is a lot of clinical trials of various types of cancer. So there is, they are at the moment testing which one, but there is a number of cancers. So the ones on the slide were some of the things there.
So the cell robot is for the equilibrium, is that something like a therapy option?
Well, you know what? If this would be therapy option, I just found a cure for cancer because this would mean if the immune system is that strong, it takes over. But this is such a strong implant that basically I don't know whether it's even realistic. So we did it as a toy model. Just to see. Peter, I think we just seen it a week ago and we thought it is a nice thing to show. But I mean, it is an example of immunosurveillance, but if this really realistically can happen, that there is such a large impact, I'm not sure.
I'm going to let Hans have the last question.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. So your predictions are based on a specific model for the consumer 3D book.
Yeah.
How sensitive are the predictions to changing
Of parameters.
No, even the functional form of those equations.
You mean functional forming what, and you want to put different model instead?
Well, for example, if you have a linear term, is it really quadratic? And if it's quadratic, does that change fundamentally your prediction?
You mean in the dynamics or in the objective? In the dynamics, well, I cannot imagine drug entering in the quadratic form. Drug has to enter linearly the system, but other, okay, you mean just generally. Generally. Well, we applied to, right now I show 4 models, yeah, of 5 companies, and there are various structures there. Stepanova model is rather simple. Hampel's model has all those more complicated, and still it comes persistently. So really, the type of structure we are looking at is f of x, one vector field, plus g of x, another vector field, times u. And f of x and g of x can be as messy, as nonlinear as you want. And we are seeing that it's really the behavior of that is linear in u and how these two vector fields interact. But so far, in all those models, which takes into account a microenvironment and includes heterogeneity, we observe this in a consistent way. On the other hand, as I started at the beginning, forget heterogeneity, takes a model for the homogeneous cell population. You will not it does matter. It does and doesn't. It depends. Okay, they are classic. Yeah.
And we can just think